Hello everybody, Calamity here, and I'm back from my tiny break of making a bunch of videos. I made a bunch the last few weeks, and now we're back, and I'm here to read your Genshin hot takes. So I took a couple screenshots of your guys' comments in the previous video, and I took one other person's comment that I thought was kind of funny. But let's go ahead and begin, starting with Perry Heika. I don't know if I said that right, sorry. They say, hello, I'm a new subscriber. I love watching these kinds of videos while I'm doing chores around the house, so thank you for the entertainment. Thank you for watching. Here are the hot takes you can use for a future video. I wish there were no child characters in this game. The only child characters that exist in this game are all little girls, and that is so suspicious. Few of the adult characters lack canon age ranges too, which causes arguments online. If the game is going to be so obvious about the target audience of these characters, then I want all of them out of the game. 2. I have never personally been upset about anniversary awards lacking. Like the rest of the fandom, Genshin has a far more forgiving gacha system than other gacha games that I have played. I've just never seen a need to complain about anniversary rewards. 3. I actually agree with Raycaster24 on the new rewards for the TCG. This is a reference to the previous video. If you didn't see it, basically Raycaster said in a comment that the TCG should have better rewards so that more people play it. That was his hot take in the previous video. I understand your point of view on not wanting to feel the forced to play the TCG, but I also think there should be another reward for TCG players because it's unfair that we get next to nothing. Maybe there could be a shop like the Serenity Pot that gives the TCG players extra resin, Mora, weapon EXP in exchange for the coins. I think this way no one would feel forced to play the TCG, but TCG players wouldn't feel ignored. Good luck with the next video. Thank you. Alright, let's take this hot take apart bit by bit, starting with the first point where they talk about I wish there were no child characters in this game. The only child characters that exist in this game are all little girls. I think they mean playable characters, right? That's what you mean? Because I was gonna say, like, one of the first characters you meet is a young boy named Timmy who gets mad at you if you kill his pigeons, right? He talks about, oh, the ecosystem of the pigeons. I was like, bro, there's a lot of children in this game that aren't just girls. And that is so suspicious. Few of the adult characters lack canon age ranges too, which causes arguments online. If the game is going to be so obvious about the target audience of these characters, I want them all out of the game. This is certainly a hot take because, well, for one, Teyvat is a big world, and I think just having children running around in the game, whether they're playable or not, really adds to the atmosphere, to the environment. Like, hey, you're in a big city, there's all these kinds of characters, like, you know, you go to a Fontaine, there's all these Melusine hopping around, and people walking around and stuff, and it feels lively. It feels like, you know, you're in a big world, and it's a lot to the player's immersion to have different kinds of characters in the game, whether they be playable or not. Think of it like, you know, GTA or Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Like, those games don't have kids in their games for different reasons, but, you know, it kind of like pulls you out of it a little bit, right? Like, why aren't there kids walking around in like the city or, you know, in this village I'm in while I'm exploring? It kind of pulls you out of it a little bit. But let's focus on the other parts here. So you say the only characters that exist in the game are little girls, and that is so suspicious. Why is it suspicious to you only little girls are playable? That's like, isn't Mika a kid? Am I wrong? I don't know his age, actually. This goes into your next point about the age not being mentioned, but I thought Mika was also a kid. Or maybe he's like a short teen or something, but I know he's a guy that it's playable, so you technically have one, I think. I don't know if he counts though. And then you say if the game is going to be so obvious about the target audience of these characters, then I want them all of the game. I don't know what you mean by about the target audience though, because like Klee is a very popular character, at least, you know, during this game's first year or so. She was a very popular character, very strong character, and a lot of people like her. She's, you know, a lot of people think she's cute. Sammer, one of my frequent commenters on my videos, loves playing Klee. Does that mean she's suspicious because she likes playing Klee? No! Like, people can like these characters and think they're adorable. People like Chi-Chi, people like Yao Yao, people like Mika, whatever, you know? Like, it's not suspicious to like a character that you think is cute. That doesn't mean everyone's suspicious for liking Klee. You know, that's too what's the word? You're grouping up too many people just by saying that. That's definitely a hot take for sure. And then you say like the game is being obvious about the target audience. It's not, because again, like a lot of people can just like Klee because they like Klee and they think she's very fun to play for them, or they think she's a very cute character to play. And you know, there's gonna be tons of characters like that. But I do agree that I do think there should be also young males. I don't like saying young boys. That sounds so weird. There should be young males as playable characters in this game as well. And then to talk about your point about the lack of canon age causing arguments online, don't let arguments online ruin your experience with this game. It doesn't matter. Like, even if there were canon ages for this game, people would argue about something else. It's online arguments. There's always going to be something people are going to complain about, to argue about, no matter what. So I would just let them be. I mean, is the lack of canon ages affecting you? Does it bother you and your gameplay and your experience enjoying the game? I hope not. That would be weird to let what other people are arguing about affect you. Like, there's a lot of people that hate Genshin, right? But I don't let that affect my experience or my viewpoint, or, you know, my enjoyment of playing this game. So it shouldn't bother you either, is what I'm saying. 2, I have never personally been upset about the anniversary rewards lacking like the rest of the fandom. It depends when you played, because the biggest like backlash Hoyoverse got was the first year's anniversary rewards being very, very lackluster, and we barely got anything. And then you go on to say Genshin has a far more forgiving system than other gacha games I played. That's fair. It really depends where you're coming from. If you've played like Summoner's War, for example, that game doesn't even have a pity system at all. Or if you've played, I don't know about FGO, and I know there's like a lot of older gacha games that are very greedy and don't even have good pity systems. But if you played more of the newer ones, the more modern ones, your viewpoint will definitely change. I think a lot of the newer gacha games all have a nice pity system, or at least are more generous with the rewards, which is why when people come back and compare it to Genshin, that's why there's like a lot of backlash for it. But this is certainly a hot take for sure. And then you said, I've never seen a need to complain about anniversary rewards. The good part about us, well, not me, but like the good part about the community that complained about the anniversary rewards is that Genshin kind of stepped up their game, so to speak, and they did end up giving us a bunch of extra gems in the mail. That came in result as from us complaining. Google Classroom did nothing wrong, and that was kind of messed up that the Genshin community unfairly review bombed that app, even though it had nothing to do with Genshin at the time, or like Genshin at all is what I mean. But I would say now the the anniversary rewards are just alright, because if you compare them to other games that Hoyoverse has made, like take a look at Triple Z. They are getting a free 5-star weapon in their anniversary rewards. They're also getting a free 5-star character. Like, we get free 5-star characters, but we've never gotten a free 5-star weapon. That would be sick. Definitely a hot take, for sure. Number 2. So 2 hot takes out of 2 so far. And then the last one is agreeing with the TCG having more rewards and incentives to play, but then you use the Serenity Pot as an example. The thing with the Serenity Pot is that you can definitely just set up your Serenity Pot once, like just put a bunch of objects in your base. It doesn't even matter about the layout. Just get to the point where you're getting the maximum amount of income you can, and then you set it, and then you forget it. Like, you just come back to your pot like once or twice a week, pick up your coins, pick up your friendship levels, blah 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 blah, and then you're done. Right? But if it's a TCG, I'd have to come back and play, every week, couple games, and that's far more of a time commitment than the teapot is. So, but I understand what you're trying to say. The shop for the extra goodies in exchange for coins is a nice idea. I would say this is definitely a hot take, because I still don't like the TCG, and forcing me to play something I don't like will not make me like it. But instead, what I would suggest for Hoyoverse to do is just to make their own game. In fact, you could make their own card game and include characters from Genshin, from Star Rail, from ZZZ, and just have them all in the game, and just maybe improve the mechanics a little bit, and they could definitely make another couple $1 billion or whatever off that game if they wanted to, I think. But definitely some hot takes in this comment. Thank you again for them. Yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is from Anna Barbara. Sorry I cut off your profile picture that says, "I didn't see your post for the hot takes." Crying face. That's okay. Most people don't see my posts anyways, so I just take them with a grain of salt. And don't feel too bad. If you guys want to submit your hot takes, just put them in the comments below this video, by the way, for the next video. If there is enough comments to make one, I will do it. But anyways, let's move on. They say, my hot take is that Bennett doesn't suck. I understand people are sick of playing him all the time, but he is good, and you always have the choice to play some other character. It's not Bennett's fault Hoyoverse doesn't release many good 4-star characters anymore. Also, his story doesn't suck. It's just locked behind useless stuff instead of behind a quest. His story is about on the same level as Kenich's, so sucking or not is subjective, but it's not, but it's as good of a story as Kenich's at least. You seem to make a lot of comparisons, to Kenich's story, which I know it's. But let's go ahead and go back to the beginning here. So first of all, no one is saying Bennett sucks. At least I don't think so. If anyone is saying Bennett sucks in this current meta, or in this current environment at all, they are completely wrong. Bennett is still one of the best characters in this game. I think you mean to say that like people are probably hating on Bennett because it's like, dude, I only have one of them, and I have like these 2 teams in Spiral Abyss that both need him. I think that's what you're trying to say, but like I don't think anyone's saying he's a bad character and to like not build him or whatever. He's very good. And then you say, I understand people are sick of playing him all the time, but he is good. Yeah, going back to your first statement, I don't think anyone's saying he's bad. And you always have the choice to play some other character. Now, here's the hot take right here at the very end. You always have the choice to play another character. While that is true, in cases like the Spiral Abyss or the Imaginarium Theater, well, maybe not the Imaginarium Theater, but definitely Spiral Abyss, where you want your teams to be performing the best they can, Bennett is a huge part of that, that whole team doing really, really well. And because you have to split him, you can't just, like, you could just use another 4-star character, but then that team's performance is going to take a dip, right? If you're using, Malvika Natland team, if you're using Arlecchino's team, you're going to definitely notice a huge drop in your damage and performance overall. And that doesn't feel good, as a player, because you're doing less damage never feels good. Yeah, we could replace Bennett with like another healer or another shielder or whatever, but you're definitely going to feel the effects of not having his attack boost in your team, and that's not something that can be easily replaced. It also really depends on the team that we're talking about here and what we're going up against and stuff like that, but not being able to use Bennett is a huge, huge loss and not an easily replaceable one. And then you say Hoyoverse doesn't release many good 4-star characters anymore. This is hot take-ish, because I mean, we have some good 4-star characters now. I mean, like Chevreuse is really good. Auroron, I would say, is pretty good. I don't know about Aoife. We just got another 4-star. I don't know how good he is. And then we just got, in the live stream, they just announced one. I forgot. Dahlia. He doesn't seem that good, at least on paper, but I could be totally wrong, and he ends up being a fantastic character, but we'll have to wait and see. And then the last bit of your comment is about the story. I don't remember his story, because remember, any Bennett story, if you're talking about like the Hangout stuff, that came out like 4.5 years ago or something like that. I don't remember it, so... And I can't really comment on story preferences stuff because it's preference. And like you said, it's subjective. So, you like what you like. If you like this story, then, good for you. If you did, I don't even remember Kenich's story, to be honest, that well. And that's more recent. So I can't really compare these two, but that's always going to be subjective no matter what. Let's move on to the next one, but thank you again for your comment. So this one we have 2 hot takes-ish, or maybe they're like a continuation, but let's go ahead and read them both. So we have Sokoku Stan? I don't know if I said that right. My hot take is that Fontaine wasn't the best nation. In my opinion, it's Inazuma. I think people overhype Fontaine. Second is Coffee King. I cannot explain to you my utter disappointment having heard that Fontaine was peak Genshin just to get there, and you have to sit through a 5-hour knockoff of Ace Attorney, which you can't even fail at. So let's start with the first one. So your hot take is that Fontaine wasn't the best nation, which is certainly a hot take, I would say, because most of the community would agree that it isn't that it is the best nation, but it depends why. This is too vague. Why didn't you like Fontaine? Is it the characters? Is it the story? We're talking about the first person alone, right? The second person says clearly they don't like the story. But the first person, I don't know. Is it the exploration? Maybe you didn't like the underwater exploring, because I'm sure a lot of people would agree, maybe, that, you know, maybe the exploration underwater wasn't fun because you couldn't use your character's abilities. There's a lot of reasons why you could not have liked Fontaine. You know, I don't know why that is. And then you also say, in your opinion, it's Inazuma that's the best nation, and you think people overhype Fontaine. The overhyping Fontaine is definitely true, so that's not really a hot take. And your opinion of Inazuma being the best nation is definitely a hot take. Inazuma definitely has some mixed reception for sure. But again, you don't really specify why you like Inazuma. Was it the story? Was it the exploration? Was it just the characters? Was it the vibe of the place? So, you know, there's a lot of reasons to dislike a nation, story-wise, gameplay-wise. There's just so much variance in between them. Like, think of it as Final Fantasy. Imagine going up to the Final Fantasy community and saying, hey, I think Final Fantasy VII is overrated, and I think this one, you know, this Final Fantasy is better. And that would be a totally valid opinion, because Final Fantasy games differ with their mechanics and stories and characters. Just like in Genshin, every nation's a new set of characters, new environment, new gameplay mechanics. And it's going to be a totally different experience, right? So, of course, people are going to have different opinions, and that's totally fine. Let's go on to the next comment that says, I cannot explain to you the utter disappointment of having heard that Fontaine was peak Genshin, and you just had to sat through a 5-hour knockoff of Ace Attorney. To be fair, there's a lot of dialogue in every nation, not just Fontaine. I mean, that land had lots of dialogue as well. Sumeru and Inazuma, like, all the nations basically have lots and lots of dialogue, no matter what. You have to sit through hours of dialogue. Now, which one you enjoy, just like before, is going to be up to you. I can't make you, you know, dislike. I can't sell it to you, basically. You like what you like. It's your preference. So, these aren't really hot takes, in my opinion. These are just what you like. So we'll just move on. Keeps resetting my zoom. I don't know why. Anyways, Sammer Jammer with the hot take of, I agree with Ray about the TCG. I don't play it because there's no incentive to. Something they could do is use the clothing shops already in the game and have an in-game skin shop where we use TCG coins as tender. Never gonna happen, but it's an idea, and it would get people playing TCG. I also love Shared Cold on Dragonspine and wish they would add more environmental hazards to the game. The hot take here is that you think people will play the TCG to get skins. It very, very depends on who's getting the skin, because if it's a character they don't have or don't even like, they're not going to play. And it also depends what the skin looks like, because just because there's a different skin doesn't mean people want it. Like, what if the skin doesn't look good? What if you don't like the way it looks? What if you don't like the colors? What if you don't, you know, you think their default's actually better? It will not incentivize people to play the TCG in the way that you think it will. But it is a cool idea nonetheless, to have another use for the clothing shops. Now let's talk about the second part of your comment, which is about the sheer cold in Dragonspine and wish they would add more environmental hazards to the game. I do agree. I don't know how much of a hot take this is and how much the community likes, hates environmental hazards, but we've had a decent, well, maybe not decent, but there have been some, let's say that. There have been some environmental hazards, right? Remember Inazuma? You had the lightning storms we had to deal with. I mean, they just added the Natlan area with the volcano, and that one just, you know, it erupts, and there's all this debris falling and stuff. Like, those are environmental hazards. But I understand what you mean with there being more. Let's move on to the next comment, because this kind of continues what Sammer was saying. And this is from Mid, I don't know how to say your name, I'm sorry. They agree about the environmental hazards. Exploration is my thing, but simply walking about looking at the scenery could be made more interesting with the environment being more part of the game. I totally agree, and don't think that's really much of a hot take. The problem with it being a free game is they can't say, we've already got your money. If you don't like the struggle, then tough. They have to pander to those who whine about this and that, in parentheses, puzzles, open world enemies, having to cross the desert, etc., being too hard. I definitely think your second half is where the hot take is. Because you say the problem of a free game is that they have to keep pandering to make money. Just want to point out that you can refund a game if you don't like it. Like, even if you buy a $60 game or whatever, and you're like, hey, I don't like the struggle, this game's too hard, or this game sucks, you can refund it. Just saying. And then they won't have your money. And people will notice the big amounts of refunds and say, hey, we're messing up here, we gotta up our game. This happened with I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Warcraft 3 reforged version. That's basically a remake of a classic 2003 RTS. When this first came out, a lot of people were refunding it because it was basically a very bad product from Blizzard. And it still kind of is, to be honest. But point aside, lots of people were refunding. Blizzard noticed this and they were like, hey, we got to step up our game. Took them a while, but hey, at least they're finally improving the game. So it wasn't like a, hey, we got your money, sucks to suck, that, you know, like, enjoy the game, loser, like, kind of deal. So just saying that doesn't really apply here. So that's definitely a hot take, for sure. And then you say they have to pander to those that whine about this and that being too hard. Puzzles being whined about, the only puzzle I ever remember being whined about was the Sudoku-like puzzle in Inazuma on Watatsumi Island for being a little too hard. I don't remember other puzzles getting that kind of attention, though. Open world enemies, I think the ones that were complained about are the ones in, like, Fontaine, like the local legend stuff, or and like the Natland challenge stuff, being, well, really challenging. But I don't see them pandering to those, because, like, a lot of people said the local legends in Fontaine were very hard enemies to deal with, but hey, they did the same thing in Natland, and those ones are just as hard, if not harder. So they're not exactly pandering to those that complain. Having to cross the desert, to be fair, that area was just that area was just a lot of walking, to be fair. But if my comments on my other videos are anything to go by, Hoyoverse doesn't always pander to everybody that whines. Like, take the recent combat event. I talked about it in a recent video, and a lot of comments were like, oh my god, this event sucks, this event is too hard, oh my god, Hoyoverse is only, you know, pandering to whales, they don't care about everyone else, you know, stuff like that. And every update, there's the same-ish combat event that's just as challenging, if not more challenging than the previous one, and I get the same complaints, so they're not exactly pandering. So I would definitely say that's a hot take, to say they have to pander, because they definitely don't, in a lot of cases. But yeah, thank you for your comments, both of you. Let's move on to the next one. Ooh-wee. Alright, sorry I cut off your profile picture when I took the screenshot, but I thought your comment was kind of funny. This comment was not in the previous hot takes video, this was on a different video. But anyways, this comes to us from ab.abba, I think. Every event weapon should be for the endgame players. They have to. Endgame players has nothing to do other than events. At least give us a good weapon to have fun with. Let's talk about that for... I'm sorry. The first half makes me laugh because he says they have to. You have to make them endgame viable, bro. That makes me laugh. The question is why? Every event weapon has to be for endgame players. Why? Because, like, do you not know that events are open to, you know, AR 25 or even 20 to 30 players? I don't even know what the requirements are. But basically, the requirements are low. If you're at AR 20 through 30, you're not at endgame. You're not even close to endgame yet. So why would they give you an endgame weapon when the character or the player is not even at endgame? Furthermore, what's an endgame weapon? Because you could say, well, like, yeah, 5-star, you know, weapon, pullable weapons those are the endgame ones. Those are usually the best ones. But what's a 4-star endgame weapon look like? Like, what kind of effect would you want the weapon to have that makes you go, that's actually good for endgame? Other than it just giving you either tons of energy for your supports or whatever, or just tons of damage, right? Because we actually have had a weapon that just gives you straight up a bunch of damage. That's the Fontaine Magic Overlord Sword that we got in an event. That one basically straight up gives you like 40-something% attack percentage just for doing quests and once you've done them, it's set in stone. Like, that's a viable weapon. But should every event weapon be for endgame players, considering the fact that we can't get 4-star weapons, 4-star event weapons from old events? It would make players that missed out on those events feel even more FOMO than they already do. So I don't think that's good at all, and that is certainly a hot take. So yeah, not every weapon has to be endgame viable, because they still want you to have some incentive to pull for 5-star weapons, right? That's how gacha games are. That's how these games do their business, right? Because if people were like, oh my god, guys, this 4-star event weapon is even better than the 5-star, weapon for this and that character, then people would just go for the free weapon and they would lose money because people aren't pulling for the 5-star one. So they don't have to make good 4-star event weapons. I wish they would make decent ones, but they don't have to. And with them being like permanently missable, at least for now, hopefully they change this in the future, still hoping on that. Hopefully they aren't too good so that players that miss them don't feel bad for like having missed a really good weapon. There's only like a small handful of really good event weapons. And then the second half of this comment says, endgame players has nothing to do other than events. At least give us a good weapon to have fun with. So let's talk about that first part. Because you say other than events, I'm assuming you've already done Spiral Abyss, got all the rewards, and Imaginarium Theater, and got all the rewards. I'm okay with this game not having like 50,000 different... Okay, I exaggerate, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't want all these different endgame modes where I have to spend hours of my time playing through all of them. Like, it's nice that there's space between Spiral Abyss and Imaginarium Theater, that I come back, play it for like 30 minutes to an hour, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. I got it. We got all the rewards. I'm done. And then I just move on. I move on to other... Like, I like to play other games. I like to play... There's other free games to play, other gacha games to play, other, I like to play other stuff. I don't want to be playing Genshin, like an MMO, hours a day, every day to grind stuff. That's just not me. And then at the end, they say, give us a good weapon to have fun with. Again, what is fun for you? Because it sounds like you just want a good weapon. Because that's basically what every 5-star weapon is, right? Would you say the 5-star weapons are fun? Are they fun because they're good? Or are they fun because they give you a fun effect? Like, would it be fun to have a weapon that's like, every time you hit an enemy, they turn into a slime for 5 seconds? That would be a fun effect. I just thought this comment was funny. It certainly is a hot take, because Hoyoverse doesn't have to do anything for event weapons. And then for endgame modes, this was made before the announcement of the new co-op one we're about to get in the next update. So hopefully that has something that's fun for you. Person that commented. But other than that, that is going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have your own hot take you want to submit for the next video, feel free to do so in the comments down below. And I'll be sure to screenshot them, and we'll talk about them in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot, and I'll see you all in the next video.